Cup wrestled from the USA by Burling's men in black. The trophy belongs to New Zealand.
Bermuda, 2017. The moment Emirates Team New Zealand took back the America's Cup. A moment 14 years in the making. The past 3 years, 8 months, 12 days, 1 hour and 37 minutes. Every single second since has been devoted to detail. The detail of winning. 2 super teams in America's Cup racing. Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender, of 35 years in the game. Victory has been hard won.
The America's Cup is now New Zealand's Cup.
Forged through success.
The America's Cup is still New Zealand's Cup.
And failure.
Sailing's biggest prize has a new home, Switzerland.
The Stars and Stripes say it all. America's Cup will stay in America.
All that heartache and pain of San Francisco replaced by jubilation here in Bermuda.
Standing at the gate, Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, the challenger in their 5th attempt. Fresh from Prada Cup success.
Fantastico!
They're match fit and hungry for victory. A match 4 years in the making. Thousands upon thousands of tiny, individual decisions, each as important as the last. Parts machined to perfection, tested to their extreme. People pushed to their limits and beyond. But the time for testing, tuning, and training is over. Today, the fight for the 36th America's Cup begins. 2 nations, 1 prize, 1 winner, 170 years of history.
Kia ora manuhiri, hello everybody, welcome to Aotearoa, New Zealand. Welcome to Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, on one of the most anticipated days in world sport. The opening day of racing, the 36th America's Cup match, featuring the 2 teams that designed these awesome AC-75 flying monohulls. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, defender Emirates Team New Zealand, who will face off for sailing's ultimate prize, the America's Cup. Luna Rossa is battled hardened, while Te Rehotai finally gets to show the world what she's got. Wherever you are around the world in the 196 countries watching our broadcast, this is the road to the match. Emirates Team New Zealand were always lying in wait as the defender, but for Luna Rossa, well, they went the long way around, having to get past American Magic in the semis, then dominating Ineos in the Prada Cup final to be the 3rd Italian team in history to make the match. The race schedule, it's busy. 2 races today, a day off tomorrow, and then full-on racing with no break. The first to 7 race wins will hold the old mug aloft. For the opening day of racing, the defender will have port entry for race 1, starboard for race 2. So let's meet your commentary team. Lee McMillan and Heli 2, Shirley Robertson on chase 1, Nathan Alleridge beside me along with North South's president, Ken Reid. Kenny, all the pressure on the defender today.
Well, 34 years of Kiwi involvement in the America's Cup, and it's been a heck of a journey. And defending the Cup on home soil isn't easy. A lot of pressure, grand expectations. The word dynasty has even been mentioned. But this team seems oblivious. It's all about them. Shut the doors and keep the noise out. Trade secrets aren't even shared at home. And today is different. No more head fakes, no more design evolution. Shake off the nerves and turn the pressure into pride.
And for Luna Rossa, docking out once again. Docking out's always an important part of every day you go sailing. And as a sailor, it's the final chance to make sure you have everything you need for the day. Often it's a pretty casual moment, but today it's a little bit more than that. Big smiles from Francesco Brini, Pietro Sabello, and Jimmy Spittle. These guys are ready and want nothing more than to take it home.
Coming in.
let's go racing. Here's the Defender.
The moment has finally arrived for Emirates Team New Zealand. On board the power plant, powering the ropes and hydraulics include the big boys, Vanderpool, Sinclair, Huisman, all scheduled for both races today. In a grinder rotation and tagged for race 1, Steve Ferguson, Simon van Velhoven, and Guy and Dean. But count on no rotation with the afterguard. Blair Tuke, Peter Burling, Glenn Ashby, and Andy Maloney. The group that an entire nation is counting on to keep the Cup here in New Zealand.
Obviously a huge amount of pride for us to represent Aotearoa New Zealand, to race for the America's Cup, to defend it on home waters is huge, and you know, the team's just soaking that up. You know, we know we've done the work. The boat's going well. You know, now it's down to us just getting out there and putting out a good performance. But we know the Italians have, you know, they've come through a really tight Challenger Series. They've sailed well. They've improved a lot. So it's going to be a heck of a battle.
Here's the team that wants to create history.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli have been waiting for this day for over 20 years. 2000 was the last time they were in the America's Cup match. Just think about that for a moment. That's 20 years of attempts still chasing victory. At long last, they have the opportunity to challenge for the old mug once again. With the America's Cup legend Jimmy Spittle and Italy's beloved Francesco Bruni sharing the helming duties, this team could not be in better hands. It's now or never.
The reality is we're only, you know, the final building blocks of 20 years of foundation that have been laid down thanks to Patrizio and Prada and all the sailors that sailed for Luna Rossa, you know, in the last 2 decades. So even if there's 2 guys on board, maybe that were in that first one or have been involved like from the very start, we're just, you know, continuing that journey, and I think it'd be great to see a new nation, you know, lift up the cup for you know, for Italy, for Europe, for sailing.
Today we're on the back paddock, or in America's Cup speak, Course E. A puffy, shifty 12-knot northerly breeze greets the competitors for this, the first race of the 36th America's Cup. Our standard 2-minute start sequence is then followed by a 3-lap windward leeward course with 1.85 nautical mile legs finishing downwind. And to give us a bird's eye view up on the course of current and wind, the newest member of our team, Ineos flight controller Lee McMillan, high above the track. Lee, what do you see up there?
Hi there. Yeah, well, the wind's in. The tide's obviously going to be traveling down with the wind through the gap there. Not too significant in terms of game changers between the 2 boats, but the wind's looking good. Potentially a little bit cleaner on the right-hand side, less affected by that island there. So a little bit gusty, but yeah, it does look pretty good for race 1.
6 minutes and counting to start in race 1 of the match. This is what all the preparation has been about, and it is a packed race course. This is a stadium race course way out on the eastern beaches and out Maraitai Way. There's the Spirit of New Zealand, a wonderful training yacht for many youth of New Zealand. This Lion New Zealand, what a magnificent boat and history that has in the sailing world. These smiles are everywhere. Ours, the support for the locals. It'll be hard for the Italians, but they are in for the fight, and we know it. So here we go, the match, race 1. The Defender, Emirates Team New Zealand on port. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli will come in on starboard in 2 minutes with for the start of the race. All right, let's get some feeling of what it's like under the course. Shirley Robinson out on chase 1. What's the feeling right now as we head towards race 1?
Oh, Stephen, you can feel, almost taste the quiet tension, the anticipation out here today. From the hundreds of spectator boats lining the racetrack to both of the teams, going through their pre-race checks and routines, just like they always do. But today is different. Today it counts, and you can really feel that. 2 nations on the opposite side of the world, their fans on the edge of their seats, waiting, like all of us, to see just what their teams have brought to this historic battle. As Kenny said, we're on the back paddock, Course E, and conditions look great. 12 knots, not straightforward. I think plenty of action to be had on this racetrack. Stephen, the stage is set.
It is a magnificent stage. We see the flag of the Circolo della Valle Sicilia, the club that Luna Rossa present a fabled club, a racing club and a yacht club. And remember, they are friendly nations competing, but we said in our preview yesterday, well, not so friendly when you talk about the America's Cup. What a sight it makes. The spectator fleet is out. They have been waiting for this. Oh, gosh, I wish I could do that. And there, well, there's the lone Italian supporters out there, but we're ready for the race manager to give us an all clear for race one of the match. And the America's Cup, wow, tension.
This is the race committee. The wind sampling period is complete, and this race will start on schedule. Course 6.
So we will have 6 legs of this first race as we see the stadium set up. Kenny Reid, I mean, how are you feeling right now?
Well, it's the day we've all been waiting for. You know, all the hype, all the speculation, all the guesswork, you just toss it out the window. No need to throw your competitors off the scent for speed anymore, Nathan. It's just time to show it to the world. You got to lay it all out there. For sure, they're holding back some things all the time. We're always talking about keeping their toys in the toy bin, but hey, the toys are all latched on right now. They're ready to go.
Yeah, you're 100% right. There is no holding back today. They've been holding back for 4 years. They've been hiding things from each other, showing it at various moments, pulling it back, and you know, we're about a minute from entry here, and man, guys, I'm excited. I'm a bit nervous. I don't know what's going to happen today.
Wherever you are watching this around the world, we are extremely grateful to be bringing this to you. 196 countries around the world. If you're just learning this game, you'll see that boat there will come on from the left-hand side, the port side. They're allowed to come into the start area. That's Emirates Team New Zealand at 2 minutes and 10 seconds. And then from the 2-minute mark, the boat coming on the right-hand side, the starter will be Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. And this is one moment where all the chatter has been about starts. How much practice, how much better have Peter Burling and Blair Tuke and Glenn Ashby got their starts right?
Yeah, this is the very hyped moment. A lot of speculation that the challengers, Luna Rossa, might be a little more race-hardened and ready for this type of action, but here we go. Now we get to find out.
In come on port entry, the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand, and now the games begin. You can see on the right-hand side, they're allowed in at 2 minutes, will be Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, the challenger of record. And here they come. What do we get?
You want to go, Kicker?
3, 2, 1, done.
Okay, turning. Positive 3.
Maxo 14 nodi. Normal drive, please.
Okay, he's coming up.
Will they run away from each other? Will they attack each other? The speculation on the streets here is that Spithill and Bruni might try to attack, find a little bit of a weakness in the Kiwis in this mode. But Nathan, you found out pretty quick down in, well, we all found out quick in Bermuda. Burling is a quick study.
He's a very quick study. Here he goes. He's rolling into the jibe, and Bruni and Jimmy trying to jump here already. They could be a little bit early on the way back. Let's just follow this all the way back into the start and hear the onboard comms.
Full speed. Coming up. Watch the track, TP. Yep. Speed here.
Quite early on the way back here looking at this.
Coming up. Pretty deep here. He's up inside it, so we're flying water. High mode. Yeah. Full speed up.
I think they're early. And the Kiwis are in an interesting spot right now. Here's this high slow mode that we've seen Luna Rossa pull off so well. Can they actually get the Kiwis off their foils?
2 on 10. Next on me. Okay, back on me. Okay, bit going. Yeah. Release the jib. Okay, back into here, boys, and we're good. It's coming down a little.
Race 18.
Okay, coming up hard. Pull the whale. So you've got the 5 lengths and a half gauge, please. Yeah. Copy. So, right.
March 10, 2021, race 1 of the 36th America's Cup match. Emirates Team New Zealand, Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. No more secrets, it's all out in the open.
Stephen, this is the moment that every America's Cup cycle waits for anxiously. That first lineup, give the first bit of the advantage to the Emirates Team New Zealand, but it's speed and pace.
We flag this, Keko?
Yes.
Protest. Pressing. Build.
Very aggressive move there from Luna Rossi, going for the luff, really trying to get a penalty there. If they don't get the penalty, they've pretty much thrown away the lead, and there you go, no penalty. So big advantage to Emirates Team New Zealand already in this race.
Really aggressive move there. Wow, I'm very surprised they kind of pulled that. I wouldn't call it a desperate move, but I don't know if they were ever going to get that, were they?
Clearly, the umpires thought there was nothing in it. Shirley, you're on the water. How close did that luff look to you?
Yeah, I mean, we're right behind them. I mean, I felt the same thing. It was a desperate move. Luna Rossa hadn't quite executed that start, you know, as well as we'd seen before. They were slower than the opposition, and they're on the back foot now.
Coming up, feels all right.
Yeah.
Let's go back, take a look at where they wanted a protest, cause through again.
Yeah, the boat on the left-hand side has right away. The boat on the right-hand side has to stay out of the way. The umpires deemed the boat on the right-hand side, or Emirates Team New Zealand did stay out of the way. Really aggressive move by Jimmy Smith. Remember, there was the dual helm situation on Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. Jimmy's on the right-hand side. That was his call and his move, and it didn't work.
And when we talk about this fabled line about no second, little moments, little mistakes in the match now are going to be incredibly costly.
I think Luna Rossa also didn't pull the trigger very well, like Shirley said, off that start. They were a little bit behind, but we've still got a real judge of pace right now. Let's see if they can keep this 150 or so meter lead. Let's keep it attached right now. Let's not do anything crazy.
Hey, standby attack.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
He heads up the spray that will show you everything you need to know. Distance travel on the left-hand side, what leg we're on the top left, so we're on the first of 6 legs, and VMG, the velocity mad good, all too critical here.
Yeah, that as tight an angle to the wind as you can get without losing too much speed. The higher the VMG number, the better.
Something in the right looks a bit more solid for the moment.
High in the sky, Lee McMillan, what did you make of that start, and what are you seeing on this first leg, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, you just heard it from Kiko, the breeze on the right looking a little bit more solid. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like there's a lot in it boat speed-wise. It's interesting they're putting a few tacks in, maybe sizing each other up, see who's got the better kind of bottom speeds in the tacks and what have you. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot in it from up here at the moment.
Lee McMillan, the flight controller from Ineos Team UK, and Heli 1 for us here in this opening race of the match 2021 on the Hauraki Golf out on the back paddock as we head towards the first gate, gate number 1 of 6. And it's the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand. After an aggressive start, we expected aggression. Jimmy Spittle tried his best to be aggressive, tried to protest, no penalty given, and it's advantage right now at this very early stage to Emirates Team New Zealand. And they will come around the mark ahead of the challenger of record. And the one thing you discover, look at these AC75s, they steer these things like race cars without a blink of an eye. And we just checked the gap now. That was the upwind leg, but what's going to be like downwind for both these boats. These are quick boats. Remember, both these teams had a hand in designing these 75-footers. 14 seconds the gap for Emirates Team New Zealand at the top gate.
Believe it or not, I actually think after the penalty was not allowed by the umpires, I think it was actually almost a little bit of a win for the Italians, Nathan. They didn't get smoked on that. The word around town, there's been crazy numbers about how fast or what the VMG number is of this boat. The Italians hung in there okay. They kind of got behind about 150 meters or so. It always stretches out a bit more on the run, but they didn't lose much more in that beat.
No, you're right, Kenny. There wasn't a whole lot in an upwind, and it's always hard for the boat trailing on the upwinds. They end up doing a little bit more distance. They often sail in a bit of dirty air, so if you're holding with the guy ahead of you, then your speed's pretty good. I think what's going to be telling now is what's going to happen downwind here. The lead's already stretching a little bit. Boat speed numbers look really similar from there, so it's clearly an angle difference right now, or that they're gapping out a bit. But surely right now that the main issue that we've seen this race so far was that penalty to start, non-penalty.
Well, we haven't heard too much from Emirates Team New Zealand. Let's go on board as they head on the downward leg. Leg number 2.
Come into a little more breeze. Heavy breeze. What are you thinking of the upwind? I don't know. Touch and go whether it's getting to the delay. Copy. We'll just see when he goes. Okay. Looks like we're sailing into the back of nice pressure down here. So happy right turn. Yeah.
The voices of Glenn Ashby, Blair Tuke, and Peter Burling, kind of the brain trust, trying to figure out where to position this boat on the race course, how many jibes, how to minimize maneuvers. We haven't heard from them in a while.
We haven't heard them from a long time. Yeah. Let's go on board Luna Rossa, because now they are chasing. Boat speeds, well, it's going to be interesting one. They look pretty similar going down.
The moment is joining left gate.
Yeah, copy.
They haven't been behind in a long time, I can tell you that. I think they won 11 of 12 in the Challenger Series, so this is not a position that they are familiar with at all.
This is leg number 2 of race 1 in the match for the America's Cup, the old mug. And on this downwind leg, Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender, can stretch their lead to just a little over, well, she's sitting around 370, 380 metres on Luna Rossa.
Pretty even, I should just go take the easy option. Copy. Your call on board, I'm happy 1 at this. Happy 1 and 12. Transition now.
Emirates Team New Zealand, Te Rehotai, about to complete the second leg in this opening race. They were 14 seconds ahead at the top gate. What will it be as they head to start leg number 3? Around they go. Throwing it around is Peter Burling.
Trying to make sure we get on the breeze here. Feel a bit splitting, I don't think we can make it. Got a bit to go up, but nice grounding, boys. All right.
And in comes Luna Rossa Prada Cup. The gap has lengthened. It was 14 at the first mark. It's 23 seconds at the second gate.
That one extra maneuver was a little bit costly for the Italians going into that bottom mark. Probably cost them a few seconds, but still, surely, it still looks like the Italians are just kind of hanging in there. Nobody's getting smoked out there right now. There isn't a massive speed difference, is there?
No, you're right. I mean, we didn't really know what to expect, and watching the Kiwis trading for the past 2 months, they have looked fast, so we did wonder if that might be the case, but not much in it at all. Perhaps on the downwind leg, slightly able to sail a little bit deeper, the Kiwis, but we wondered if they would be a bit race rusty, but there's been no signs of that. Very polished execution by the Kiwi boat, and very relaxed racing. Even just listening to them on board, they're giving Pete a bit of a hard time still, and just like they're out on a training run, but this is for sure a long way from being over.
Yeah, Shirley, you're absolutely right. Emirates Team New Zealand look pretty calm and composed at the moment. They're not even engaging in a lot of match racing right now. The first upwind, they were definitely covering Luna Rossa when they had opportunities, but right now they're sailing their own race. Hey, Lee, up in the helicopter, can you see anything on the race course, anything obvious from that perspective of avenues for Luna Rossa to get back into this at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think the Kiwis are heading for the better breeze at the moment on the right-hand side. Does look a little bit more consistent over there, so I'd be surprised to see Prada kind of come all the way to the left. But like you said, I think on the downwind, and Shirley commented, it looked like the Kiwis were just able to step down a little bit on depth. Similar speeds, but yeah, now they're kind of just sailing a bit of their own race.
That was the voice of Lee McMillan, flight controller for Ineos Team UK, who were beaten by Luna Rossa, Prada Cup in the Prada Cup final. And this is the big show right here. We're about to complete the halfway stage of race 1 in the match. We take the stern camera on Luna Rossa Prada Cup just to have a look at those numbers.
Starting to get a little header. 2, 1.
High right, high travel. Good pressure here.
Always very calm and composed with the afterguard of Luna Rossa Prada Pro. That was the big improver coming through round robin and into the Prada Cup final. They running the twin helm situation, and that seemed to be the real talking point. But the gap's starting to tighten up a little bit.
Yeah, came back into him a little bit. Maybe that right side of the race course didn't quite pan out. It is amazing how these guys tend to sail their own race. They aren't big on that quote match racing, that tight tactics which we've seen other boats handle during the event.
One thing you notice here is the pressure being you can see on the face of Blair Duke, the flight controller of Emirates. He gets right on the button.
Well, he's sitting at the front of the boat. He's the guy at the front of the bobsled, so to speak. That's all the wind coming in his face. That's why he's wearing the goggles. And you'd imagine these guys have been waiting for this race for a long time. There's a lot of pressure on them internally and also externally, and they don't want to let down anyone. So far, so good. Luna Rossa look like they're still coming into him a little bit, but pretty comfortable lead right now for Emirates Team New Zealand.
Happy to go straight in, if you are.
We are about to complete the halfway mark of the opening race in the America's Cup match 2021, the 36th edition of the America's Cup, and the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand, about to complete the halfway stage. And around the right-hand markers, we see it on the screen, and around they go. It's still beggars belief how they throw these around, Kenny. I'm constantly fascinated by it.
10, 11 knots of breeze, going 47 knots of boat speed around the corner.
The question, has Luna Rossa made up some time? It was 23 seconds at gate 2. They have made up a smidge, now 19 seconds. It's downwind. Emirates Team New Zealand looked pretty good on leg 2. Let's see on leg 4.
So we got a good split here between the two boats right now. First lap, Prada were pretty much doing the same track around the course. Now you can see both boats about to jibe on far boundaries, and this is an opportunity for the boat behind. If they can get a little in phase with the shifts and the breeze, they might be able to make a small gain down this run.
There was talk about maybe a speed edge downwind for this boat because of those small foils. And Lee McMillan up in the helicopter, we were talking earlier today, you think there are about 30% smaller foils underwater on the Kiwi boat than there is on the Italian boat. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The wings are significantly smaller. They kind of package the area and with more lead in the bulb and up the foil arm, the bulge in the trailing edge there. So yeah, you know, smaller area, kind of higher speed takeoffs. Yeah, you know, they're slick-looking kit, but I mean, you can see, like, the performance-wise, Prada have actually done really well. They're still in this, and it doesn't look like there's a lot between them performance-wise in a straight line, upwind or downwind, in this race so far.
Lately, boys, so keep pushing.
It's a nice looking boat, that Emirates Team New Zealand. It's all designed for aerodynamics. Just looking at it head on there as a camera boat went past it, and you can see those foils. They look very small, particularly like the wing, but also the vertical part. There's been a lot of talk about the design of those foils, and we haven't seen them until today, because when we saw these guys race in December, they were on their second set of foils. So this is their America's Cup race set of foils, and so far they look like they're doing the job, boys.
Yeah, you know, Shirley, it's interesting. One boat has a decent lead right now, but frankly, the other boat isn't going away. So for us as sports people, this could be a series. I mean, my first inclination here is this could be a series. This is not a runaway train for the Kiwis right now.
Now, I'm right there with with you, Kenny. Basically, the Italians made a slight error on the start, and then made that punchy call to go for a rule infringement. But they haven't been left behind. They are both sailing the boats so incredibly well. It's very, very impressive to watch.
Emirates Team New Zealand about to complete 4 legs of this opening race in the match of the 36th America's Cup. And around they go, the mark again, and just get back to business. 2 to go ahead of Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli.
Looks like it's setting up for another split again.
17 seconds, the gaps. They've taken 2 seconds out of the lead and the downwind leg. Now, we've been talking a lot about the twin helm of Luna Rossa and how composed and how strong it looks. But you take a look at what happens with Emirates Team New Zealand. We talk about efficiency. Watch Peter Burling here. Right, there we go. Subtlety.
You think he'd know where that gym track was by now as he's running through there? Hey, obviously, Lee, a left-hand shift. Both boats spun themselves onto port tack here. But again, the Italians are not going away.
No, that's right. It's closer, if I'm honest, than I thought it was going to be in these conditions. It's the boats are fully powered up. It's not particularly light. You would have thought you would have seen the Kiwis kind of pulling away a little bit more than they are in these conditions, and being out in front and having the freedom to make their decisions and sail clean. So like you've said, I think there's a bit of a race on here, and it's going to get very interesting.
Nathan, you think let's just go back to that start for a second, and that windward leeward luff. It just seems, I don't know, first race of the next most important event of your life, in the America's Cup, and it just seemed like a really high-risk move that really didn't have much of a chance from the inset.
Yeah, well, my coaches has always told me in my sailing, you don't want to be rolling the dice or putting a race into the umpire's hands, and you don't want to be doing it 10 seconds after the start. You want to, today is about checking in with your competition. Is your boat competitive enough to win? And the moment that Jimmy Spittle went for that luff to try and draw that penalty, he was either going to get the penalty and get in front, or he was going to be behind, and he was never going to get a proper speed check with the other boat. Yeah. Had he bluffed and realised he wasn't going to get them, just drop the board and tacked, he might have got a split, and we would have had a 50-metre deficit. But instead we had 150 metres, and now it's bouncing between 200 and 300. So
as we've learned, these boats, their sailing skills have created perfection in watching these boats go around the race course. We saw Peter Burling have a little trip there, but from the sail packages, these twin skin mainsails, down to the foil packages, the speeds these boats are seeing, the VMGs that they create, they're sailing them so perfectly. You can't expect a mistake by the other guy to help you get back into it anymore. It's really tough. We haven't seen a pass, Stephen, in a long time.
No, we haven't.
Kenny, I think the only way you really get a mistake out of your competition is to put them under pressure.
Right.
And
they took that away.
Yeah, and at the moment that happened, they now can't put them under pressure. So they kind of made it really easy for Team New Zealand to sail a very simple first race of the America's Cup, and it's now only if they make a mistake on their own back.
Rush of adrenaline in the opening leg, maybe by Luna Rossa, pushing the boundaries. Why not? Everybody's pent up. They always talk about the start, don't they? Everybody's, the adrenaline's rushing. You want to do something.
I think there's a big left shift right now. Look at these meters coming down quite quickly. Lee, can you see a big shift from the helicopter at the moment?
Good pressure here.
Nothing hugely significant coming in here. Looks like the Kiwis are on ley line there, but again, like Prada are right in it. They maybe have made a little click back there, so you could be a bit of a shift to the left.
Incredible that the Kiwis just are not engaging in any sort of kind of boat-on-boat tactics. Very different from that series that we saw, Lee, between yourselves and the Italians.
Yeah, I wonder, if they've been looking at the tacking data and realised, Prada were pretty quick with those manoeuvres. So, yeah, they just don't want to engage.
Emirates Team New Zealand. Penultimate leg done in race number 1 of the America's Cup match, and 1 leg to go. Have Luna Rossa, Prada Cup eaten into that very small lead? It was 17 seconds at gate 4, Wallaby at gate 5. Not too much more at all. 20 seconds the gap, and it's the run home to take first blood in the match.
Stand by job. 2, 1.
Check the breeze. Right, we are in a righty, same as before, probably. Moving up.
A little more unstable direction.
Okay, finish it. Angle.
Just amazing how calm, cool, and collected these teams. Every time we jump on board, we're expecting more chatter. All of us who sail at home, all of us sail in our Yacht Club series, we know what kind of chatter can break out in a boat during a boat race. But man, oh man, are these guys calm, cool, and collected.
Emirates Team New Zealand on the last leg of this opening race, and they've extended their lead. It's the biggest lead we've seen so far in this race, sitting around 430 metres. We're out on the back course, Course E, the back paddock, as they call it here locally.
On the right-hand side, we have Glenn Ashby in the bottom box, and Peter Burling driving the boat in the top, actually looking over his shoulder a little bit for once. They haven't really looked behind very much, Nathan. They tend to always be focused forward. Maybe that's one of their strategies, like Lee was saying. Maybe they do think that Luna Rossa is a good maneuvering boat, and they don't want to fall for it and get into that kind of game.
Well, you could easily think that if you've got smaller foils, they're designed to sort of go fast. And every time you do tacks and jibes, you get bottom speeds, and that's when the bigger foils might have the small advantage. So look at that foil there. Tips just piercing the water. That join between the white part of the foil and the black part of the foil. It's all critical, that design, and that's what dozens of designers in that team and sailors have been thinking about this whole last few years.
You were misting over. You started to mist it over. You fell over those foils, didn't you?
Tripping all over my words just as I looked at those foils and thought, man, they're really cool.
And that lead gets further for Emirates Team New Zealand. Here we go. It is race 1 of the match.
Round off after mark.
And Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender. It is race 1 and done. The W goes in the corner for Emirates Team New Zealand, and they get first points in the opening race of the match for the 36th America's Cup.
Not too far, boys. They're not too far.
Here, Francesco Bruni saying, not too far, boys, not too far. That means they understand the same thing we've been talking about. They were not off the pace.
But in the end, the gap is a large one in terms of winning. 31 seconds. The closest they got in the race, Luna Rossa Prada Cup, was the top gate on 14 seconds. So strong win for Emirates Team New Zealand in race 1 of the match of the 36th America's Cup.
Coco is going well.
Confirmation of the result. Emirates Team New Zealand get the 1 point. Remember, the first to 7 wins lifts up the trophy. 31 seconds, a win to Emirates Team New Zealand over the challenger of record.
So here we were. This is the kind of the beginning and the end. Everybody in the world thinks Peter Burling's going to be kind of on the back foot here, but his time and distance was actually better than Jimmy Spithill's here. Jimmy got a little bit slow. Burling was fast and kind of poked their nose out quite quick. Look at that 3-4 knot speed difference. And Spithill decides right then and there, I got to do something about this or I'm going to get rolled. Does his luff and it doesn't work. He reaches out to the umpires and says, come on, man, help me out. We got behind. We didn't have a great start. You got to help me out. They determined the boat on the right-hand side, or Emirates Team New Zealand, were free and clear. And this was really the race, Nathan. It was kind of race over, game over from there. We used a word maybe slightly unfair, kind of a little panicky move by Jimmy. He tried to get it all in one spot, didn't he?
I think he realized he messed the start up a bit. He gave them half a length advantage off the line, and he needed to do something, and it didn't work out for him. And then as they get to the top mark, it's a bit of the follow the leader around the course. Emirates Team New Zealand started clean first upwind. Great bear away here at the top mark, boat accelerating downwind, and all you can do at that point is follow, and they ended up following a lot around the track. Eventually they got a little bit out of phase, and this lead grew and shrunk a little bit as they went around, but never really looked like a threat, to be honest, in that race.
Little bit of a yo-yo, back and forth, in and out. Showed up to be, I think, about a 30-second deficit at the end, but because of the crews and how good they've gotten at sailing these boats, it's almost perfection watching these things go around the race course. If you make a mistake, like the mistake that was made by the Italians off the starting line, you're just not going to pass right now. The good news is for the Italians, they didn't seem off the pace. The better news for the Kiwis is, guess what? Peter Burling's good, and he figured out how to get that start figured out very quickly.
So just a quick reminder, these are the standings. Race 1 of the match is done. 1st to 7 holds aloft the old mug, the America's Cup. Long way to go. Race 2 not too far away. Time to go locally at 5:15. Emirates Team New Zealand, Te Rehotai gets race win number 1 in the match. Peter Burling on helm. Peter, no race roughs there. That must be a satisfying result.
Yeah, well, it's definitely obviously good to get off the line and get a few shifts up that first beat. We found ourselves on the wrong side of everyone up the second beat, but never really thought it was worth to do the extra manoeuvre. Probably a wrong move in hindsight, but yeah, really happy with the pre-start and the way that the whole team's got the boat in good shape.
Pete, Kenny Reed here, nice job, congratulations. Hey, just from a strategy standpoint, and I'm not trying to get you to give away country secrets here or anything, but you seem like you're almost laying off of tacking with them, tacking on them. Is that a strategy, or was that just how the wind shifts worked for you at the time?
Yeah, well, that second beat, I think we probably should have hit them on one of them. But yeah, obviously the first beat, we matched a lot of their attacks and seemed to be going pretty good on that. So definitely happy with how the boat's going, and it's just good to, finally get into racing. It's been a whole 3 months or so since we've last raced. So it's definitely good to finally get into racing, actually be able to see another boat, talk about another boat rather than a chase boat that's got 1,500 horsepower and can always beat up on you.
Hey, Pete, it's Nathan here. Hey, nice work. The boat's looking slick and going really well. Just sort of question for you, thinking ahead to the next one, you got the starboard entry. Any thoughts on how this start might be approached differently to the first start? Obviously, when you enter on starboard, you're reacting to the other boat. Is there a favoured end of the line out there?
Yeah, well, it definitely seems like a few shifts out there, and it's probably not as simple as it looks, I'd say. They're quite long periods, so if you end up on the wrong side of them, you lose a wee bit. So it's definitely about trying to get a good jump off the line.
Okay, Pete, thanks for your time. You've got another race in a little over half an hour, so we'll leave you to it.
Perfect. Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate that. Let's go ahead to Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. Francesco Bruni is on standby, waiting to have a wee chat. Well, Francesco, you're in a race.
Yeah, that's the good news. The performance of the boat seems to be pretty close, and so it's exciting times ahead.
Hey, Keko, obviously boat speed is the most hyped thing in the world. It's the most talked about thing coming into an America's Cup. Nobody really knows. What do you know? What do you know now? What's different from a half an hour ago? What do you know?
I still think that they probably have a fast mode upwind, which is not all the time great. if you are not in phase with the pressure, you may actually lose by going low and fast. We had our good moments during the race. I think it was the second upwind, and from there on we were nicely in phase, and we catch back a little bit. It's not easy. They're not just gonna stand back and watch. They will fight hard, and we will fight hard. It's gonna be a great America's Cup, I think.
Hey, Francesco, Nathan here. Obviously a bit of a tough first race when you guys went for the penalty off the line there. Just thinking about the next start, how's the strategy going to change slightly? It seems like the windward end generally seems to be a little bit better than the leeward end. Is that how you guys see it?
I think that we had the possibility to have a better start, and we just didn't execute it well. Tie to leeward is always a great start. If you don't have any speed differential off the line. I felt that we had a little differential. I will rewatch the tape tonight and let you know more. But yeah, I think the start wasn't bad, but we could have done a little bit better, and I'm sure that we will fight hard on the next one. I don't think the left was bad. It's just we're not strong off the line, I think.
All right, Francesco, under 30 minutes to race number 2. We'll leave you to it.
Yeah, I think we have to regroup and choose the right jeep now.
Okay, thanks, Francesco. Appreciate that, Francesco. Bruni, one of the twin helmsmen for Luna Rossa Prada. Let's crunch some numbers. Candy, let's just take a look and see where the difference might have been.
Well, we always start with the speeds, right? The upwind speed, the downwind speed. Upwind in New Zealand, a little bit quicker. And I think Francesco, Nathan, talked about it. They tend to sail a little lower and faster. Downwind, pretty nice edge to the Kiwis, actually. Distance sailed, a little. So these VMG numbers, it's kind of, Francesco kind of alluded to it. They sail a little higher and maybe a little slower. Maybe slightly better VMG upwind, but man, the Kiwis can let it rip when they want to, can't they?
Oh, they sure can. I think it's a little bit to do with the boats. You know, the smaller foil is going to make you go a little bit lower, faster upwind. The bigger foils make you go higher and slower. And we saw in the Prada Cup final that they had good height and were able to squeeze boats off if they were on their hip.
And just take a look at the difference in the speeds on leg number 1, too, because this will tell us a story.
New Zealand, the red line. Italians, the yellow line. This is that first upwind, and obviously the luff head to wind all the way on the left-hand side of this graph. There's the luff and how slow the Italians got, and there's the lead, right, Nathan? Those first couple bumps, there's the lead, and the lead kind of held its way around the racetrack.
That was effectively the race right there.
Exactly.
All right, and of course the key moment has got to be the pre-start, and of course the attempt at pushing them around.
Well, you know what? The timing wasn't great by Spithill, and we thought that Burling was going to be the one that was rusty, but I think Burling nailed this one. He was going fast. It was really a good, solid half a boat length lead when they finally got into it. And all of a sudden, Jimmy thought, uh-oh, well, I'm in trouble. I got to do something. I got to force something. And I think he forced this. Nathan and I agree. He kind of forced this issue a little bit, a little quick in the race. Why not keep the pressure on the competitor who hasn't been racing in a long time? But like Nathan said, he kind of took the pressure off by just going for it, all in one shot. That's a home run hitter, just swinging for the fence. And guess what? If he struck out, and that's the bottom line. He struck out on this one, and it was race over from here on in.
So a 31-second victory to Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender, in race number 1.
We flag this kicker
of the match. You can hear Jimmy Spittle saying, try to get the protest. It was a no penalty from Richard Slater and the umpiring team. And that then pretty much was where it sorted itself out. So let's head out onto the water now, get some thoughts on this race from Shirley Robertson, our double Olympic gold medalist. What did you make of that one?
Isn't it incredible? We've been watching these boats for the last 3 months, and that race came down to the tiniest of detail on that pre-start. Amazing to watch. I have to tell you a little story from yesterday. The boys on Chase Boat 1 that I'm sitting in, yesterday they saw the Kiwis do a foiling 360. They were practicing their starts. I mean, The quality of execution and manoeuvring in both these boats is now unbelievable. It's off the scale. You know, I'm surprised a little bit by Jimmy Spittle. It's his 4th America's Cup final. He's no stranger to this kind of pressure. And to me, that move was unnecessary. It was a bit of nerves and a bit uncharacteristic. And, you know, yeah, for sure he's feeling under pressure, but really surprised by that kind of really attacking style so early in this game.
Jimmy Spittle is human after all. We look at this magnificent spectator fleet, but the one man that will be very happy is that man there in the cap with his back to us now, Grant Dalton, the boss of Emirates Team New Zealand. We spoke in our preview show yesterday about how excited he was, but you never tell what's going on as we see Heli 2 flying around, but he'll be quietly satisfied. Let's go up to the helicopter, by the way, and get the thoughts of Lee McMillan, the INEOS flight controller. Your thoughts on the race, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously incredibly interesting, exciting to watch them line up for the first time, and you know, by the naked eye, there wasn't a lot in it, and interesting to kind of get the thoughts of the skippers, the sailors after the race there, and you know, ultimately coming down, trying to get into phase with the shifts and pressure and all those kind of normal sailing things, and just kind of getting your head around it is super interesting. There's a little bit of a change out here on the water, it looks like. The breeze is potentially kind of shifting around to the left. It looks like it kind of coming down to the left of that island. So, you know, it could be a bit of a change for this next race, and I'm sure they'll be kind of getting fully geared up for it.
Thanks for your thoughts, Lee. We're under half an hour to race number 2 in the match of the 36th America's Cup. So both boats, Luna Rossa at the far end, and in your foreground you can see Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender, now quickly running over how to approach race number 2. Kenny, just briefly, huge confidence booster. Not that they don't lack any confidence, Emirates Team New Zealand.
Yeah, especially for Peter Burling. A lot has been made not only by the press around the world, but really all the locals. That's all they talk about. Are these guys going to be hardened enough at racing to compete against the challenger who has been, you know, just pounding it out racing the whole time? There's 2 different methods to get here. These guys went through a method of improving boat speed. The other guys went through a method of improving boat speed through sailboat racing. And hey, sure enough, they passed the first test.
One of the key members of the afterguard is Glenn Ashby for Emirates Team New Zealand. Guess what? He's a fair dinkum Aussie. Grew up in the landlocked city of Bendigo. He learned to sail on a lake that was often near dry. Can you believe that? But he's also New Zealand's favourite Aussie and fiercely loyal to Emirates Team New Zealand. So here we go, 3 years and the wait is over as a new entry is written in the America's Cup storybook.
Yeah, look, I guess being, you know, the home team here in Auckland in New Zealand it's a huge thing. You know, I think for everybody that works in the building here behind me, it's been a long journey since Bermuda. You know, it's been 4 years since we won the America's Cup over there.
The America's Cup wrestled from the USA by Burling's men in black. The trophy belongs to New Zealand.
The whole country of New Zealand is absolutely behind Emirates Team New Zealand, and fingers crossed we can get out there and do the business for them.
The Prada Cup, the gateway to sailing's biggest show, the America's Cup match against Emirates Team New Zealand.
It's been really interesting watching the Challenger Series. Yeah, we're absolutely wanting to get out there and go racing.
You win 7, you go to the big show, the match against Emirates Team New Zealand.
Every single boat over the Challenger Series and ourselves have been vastly different in their design concepts, their sails, their foils, but have turned out to actually be very, very similar in performance. And for Luna Rossa to make it through, they're obviously very, very worthy challengers.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, they have signalled their intentions. They're showing Emirates Team New Zealand they are here to play, and they will play hard.
They're going to be extremely quick. We know they're going to be very aggressive in the pre-starts and be aggressive on the race course. So we're very much looking forward to getting out there and testing ourselves and testing our equipment versus them, and hopefully that'll be enough to defend the America's Cup.
He'll be like killing two.
He's early still.
Yeah. Killing 2, 3, 2, go. Start my pitch. There we go. Yeah. Use that speed. Nice.
The start and the pre-start is extremely important. We know that the dual helm setup of Luna Rossa with Francesco Bruni and Jimmy Spittle is a very, very tough combination. They can pull off some pretty interesting manoeuvres. We've obviously seen that for quite a long time now, and have been sort of working on our own manoeuvring and strategies about how we get our own boat around the racetrack, and certainly in the pre-start as well. And as we've seen, the racing is so tight, you really do need to get off the start line in good shape to give yourself a chance of actually winning the race.
Huge crowds on the Viaduct. They are excited. They are ready to go.
The backing that New Zealand has for sailing and the excitement that is created here, I think, is something that certainly resounds around the world. Without a doubt, we're ready to get out on the water and defend the America's Cup. There's absolutely no question that that's been a massive motivating driving factor for the last 3.5 years. We're just ready to get out there and get the boat around the racetrack as quick as we possibly can.
Counting down to race number 2 in the match, the America's Cup. Glenn Ashby there, key member of the afterguard for Emirates Team New Zealand, but Nathan Outeridge, it's Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, they've taken a shot across the bow. What do they do for race 2?
Well, they've got to regroup. I think what we heard Francesco Bruni say there in that interview we had was that they're surprised. Well, not they're surprised, they're happy with their boat speed. They're in the game. But he said, we've got to get off that start line better. I was asking him about which end of the line's going to be favoured, and he said tight to leeward is strong, or you've got to be wide and right. So there'll be an afterguard chat going on right now with their coaching staff, Philippe Presti, saying, how do we execute a better start than we did last time?
It's going to be interesting. As we know, the America's Cup is sailing's holy grail. To win, you've got to be the best. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli went into the Prada Cup final as underdogs and sailed like champions. But they've earned the right to take on Emirates Team New Zealand. They've been here before. What the year was? 2000. The result didn't go their way, but now, 21 years later, it's on. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, they are your Prada Cup champions in 2021. They have earned the right to challenge the defender of the 36th America's Cup.
Well, winning the Prada Cup was kind of a relief, no? Because now you can say we are finally in the America's Cup. And it was nice. I mean, we are Italian, so we are probably exaggerate sometimes to celebrate a win or a victory, but the real one is in a few days' time, and we know it's going to be tough.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, they are going to challenge Emirates Team New Zealand for the 36th America's Cup.
We almost had 2 Prada final, no? Because we did the first 4 races, then we stopped, and then we went back in the water again. So the first day when we came back on the water after the lockdown, losing a race was actually a good thing for us, because it just wake up us again. Because it takes really 2 seconds to go from 0 to hero and vice versa. And I think it's going to be the same next week.
Prada proved how good they are to win the Louis Vuitton, but being the best in the challenges has not been good enough this time, because the defenders have taken the game to a new level.
Well, 20 years ago, we raced in the final against Team New Zealand in the America's Cup final. We raced in the Challenger Selection final a few times. but it's different. Again, we are racing for the big trophy, no? For the big hallmark. And there is a lot of story, no? More than 20 years of history between the two teams. We had up and down. I think everyone at the end wants to win this trophy because there is a lot. It's not just a yacht race. There is a lot behind this cup. There is ego, there is a change in history. For us, it will be an historical victory. To play with the best, you need to be the best.
Every day you have to get better, you have to get faster, leave no stone unturned.
At the end, historically, the fastest boat is always winning the cup. I don't remember a cup being winning by the best sailing team, but you could have the best sailing team and the best boat, and normally they are going together. If we have an even boat speed, I'm pretty confident to beat them. If there is a big difference in boat speed, obviously it's going to be pretty hard.
Under 15 minutes to the start of race number 2 on course E for the 36th America's Cup match, and the spectator fleet has seemingly grown after the first win by 31 seconds to the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand. The pressure is somewhat off. You can imagine the pressure felt by Emirates Team New Zealand being on home waters and being the defender. Well, the pressure valve has been turned off just a smidge now as we get ready for race number 2. Aotearoa, New Zealand has the 9th largest coastline in the world. No matter where you are, you live more than 128 kilometres from the sea. It's home to a number of Māori iwi, that's tribes, including Auckland's Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei. They are a proud seafaring people, and like all Māori, credit Maui for the creation of Aotearoa.
Maui is one of our deities, one of our gods, or Atua in Māori, and he's the god who, for example, was responsible for slowing down the sun. So he captured the sun because the days were too short and they couldn't grow crops. So that was one of the amazing feats he achieved in his time. And also the other one, which we're proud of here in New Zealand, is he was the man who fished up Aotearoa. So the North Island is his fish. South Island was a waka he caught the fish on. So we are ocean-faring people. We are tangata whenua, people of the land, and tangata moana, people of the moana. We came here on waka, so we came here on boats. A lot of us call ourselves tangata whenua now because we're lazy, but we are tangata whenua, people of the land, tangata moana, people of the ocean.
The moana has an essence, it has a life force, but it's part of who we are, the ocean. When the tide goes out and you've got that shimmering glow on the sand, that's Hene Kirikiri. And she is responsible for the new life that comes out of the sand, you know, and then you see the birds coming down to feed. So each stage of the moana, it's Maori, the force of it changes, but it's solid and it's conducted by different atua in terms of our learning and relationship. For us, we've seen that America's Cup is an event of great latitude, magnitude, and it means a lot to the sailors. We have a commonness in terms of how we respect the sea. The challenge is there that you're met by the current, the wind, the day, the sky, you know, whether there's pelting rain or absolutely no wind. Of course, I know the sailors don't like no wind because you can't sail, whereas we can paddle anytime.
As a local iwi here in Tāmaki Makaurau, Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei, we've been involved in a lot of the blessings for the various teams, not only Team New Zealand. We've also been involved in naming a couple of the Team New Zealand boats, and we're very proud of the name we just gave, Te Rehutai. It means sea spray or ocean spray. So for me, like when you race a fast car, you say, eat my dust. For Te Rehutai, it's eat my sea spray. Well, if Maui was alive nowadays, I reckon he'd be up there racing. He'd be proud to be in the America's Cup. He'd probably be in his waka trying to challenge these waka, so that would be his job. But up to 100k an hour, he might be struggling. He'll need a few more people with him this time.
Time to go to battle again.
No panic and no drama. A pat on the back after the race by a teammate for Jimmy Spithill, who kind of went for broke early and didn't pull it off. Not the first time a mistake was made, and likely not the last. What we did see is a team that seems to have some pace. They've pretty decent pace. So if you're Coach Philippe Presti, you preach keep it simple, stick to the game plan, shake it off. Let's get back to our winning ways. We were 11-1 entering this series. Let's just remember how to win a race and have at it, boys.
And so they face up to Emirates Team New Zealand, who've got 1 point on the board on their potential way to 7 race wins if you want to win the Cup. Let's see what they've got on offer for race 2.
Well, Emirates Team New Zealand looked great in today's first race. If there was any question marks on Peter Burling's starting skills, he clearly answered that in race 1. A great start with perfect time and distance put them in a strong position off the line. From there, they kept it simple, and they sailed clean and went on to win race 1. The pressure must have eased a little bit now, but now is not the time to take the foot off the gas. It's time to shift gears and put your foot flat to the floor.
Here we go. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, Emirates Team New Zealand. It'll be Luna Rossa with port entry for race 2 of the match. And dark clouds hanging out over the back paddock. Let's get out onto the water. Shirley Robertson, our double Olympic gold medalist in Chase Boat 1. Shirley, do you feel any rain? You know how you can sense rain.
It does look a little bit menacing, doesn't it? I mean, remember, we're into autumn now here in New Zealand, so there's plenty of weather. Also, the North Island's really thin island and lots of weather coming off the ocean. There is lots of cloud on the left-hand side. It is coming our way, but it's not really changed the direction. We have a little bit more wind, actually, maybe 14 knots. Both boats have gone for a smaller jib. They look to match probably the J3. It's going to be a good contest. The breeze blowing through that gap down the island and down between the islands, and it looks like a great racetrack.
Thank you, Shirley. Let's head up into the sky and Heli 1 with former Ineos flight controller Lee McMillan. What can you tell us about what's happening with the course right now, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, like Shirley just said, it does look like the breeze has pepped up a little bit. Maybe shifted a tiny bit to the left. It looks like the windward marks are just kind of narrowed in right underneath the island there. So it could be a bit shiftier at the top and maybe a little bit gustier and shifty down the race course. So, you know, there could be some opportunities for some kind of place changing in this race with those kind of difficult conditions. So it could be super interesting.
Thank you, Lee. Looking forward to your insights as we take a look at the race course and to the left-hand side as well. The spectator fleet, and there'll be one man that'll be satisfied right now. That is Grant Dalton, the big boss of Emirates Team New Zealand. He's been basically running this regatta. He's got so much going through his mind, but he'll be quietly satisfied with the result of Emirates Team New Zealand getting the first race. He'd be happier, I'm sure, Kenny, if they get another one to bag and take a 2-0 lead going into Friday's racing. But it's going to be interesting. Wind gets up a little bit. do we now potentially hear more about the speed of Te Rehutai?
Well, I think the interesting part in between those races is both boats talked about wind shifts. And, you know, we kind of lose sight of the fact that we're watching these things rip around the race course at boat speeds that have never been seen before in racing and sailing. And we forget. There's wind, there's shifts, and both teams talked about how they could have done a better job at the wind shifts. So, like Lee was saying, maybe that's our chance at passes if we start seeing big shifts on the race course, especially Nathan, with these black clouds coming in from either side. We could see some real shifty conditions.
Yeah, and for sure, with the wind shifts and the wind speed going up and down a lot, the fact that these boats go so fast, all it takes is 2-knot increase in wind speed and the boats can go 4 or 5 knots faster, or a 5-degree left-hand shift and you put the bow down and you're ripping and you're doing a much better VMG. And you heard Peter Burling say we're a bit out of phase on that second beat. You know, we sailed the headers, we sailed more distance. Luna Rossa gained a few times. We probably should have hit him. We should have got in phase. And I think reading that means that he thought they should have won by further.
Now, you might want to explain physically hit.
No, tacking on top of them. Basically, you know what I mean, but I know what you're trying to get at. Getting in phase with the other boat, going the same direction as them, not giving them any leverage to get advantage of any shifts. If you're in front, you just want to stay close to the other boat, particularly if you're going quite fast. If you're behind, you want to split and make some gains that way. So if it's shifty out there, might be a few more tacks this race and less boundary-to-boundary sailing.
Counting down to race number 2 of the match in the 36th America's Cup, the Defender already has a 1-0 lead. First to 7 wins the Cup. So confirmation we are a live go from the race committee on the back paddock, course E, 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Counting Kenny, the one thing we didn't really see too much in the first pre-start was much engagement.
No, I think there was more maybe for sailors. There was actually quite a bit of engagement. There was a little dog and pony show there, a little push, a little chase, and then that last timing, it's how far you gap off. The boat to weather, which was Emirates Team New Zealand, the boat on the right-hand side, really had to time that well to kind of have a slingshot, Nathan. They put the bow down and had that boat ripping off the starting line 4 or 5 knots faster. So that was, to me, that was very impressive. Hard to do with a boat tucked under on your left-hand side so closely.
Yeah, very hard to do when you're pushing another boat, to rely on your software and to rely on your judgment to get your time on distance. You can see this time round they're going to be entering from opposite sides, so it'll be Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli who are going to be making that decision of when to turn back, and Peter this time will be the person reacting to the situation. You know, last time round he just picked his timing, it was kind of easier for him. This time round it's probably an easier start for Luna Rossa.
Jimmy Spittle understandably would like to be in control of this race start.
So surely if you're Jimmy Spithill, it's just more of the same, right? You just got to shake that one off and go do it. Got you here, and he doesn't have the nickname Pitbull for nothing.
Yeah, although, you know, when I spoke to Ray Davis, the coach for the Kiwis, he felt Jimmy Spithill was pretty predictable, good at what he does, but predictable. So maybe he has to shake it up a little, do something a little bit different.
Emirates Team New Zealand finally into the pre-start for race 2 of the match. So, how do they engage? Do they engage? Who's in control? Watch and listen.
Coming down up in 6, 1, yeah. 9 is bad at the moment. Okay, sir. Probably a little here.
Very similar setup, Nathan, to that first start. It's kind of the chase from the boat behind. The boat coming in on starboard tack, the Kiwis put themselves in kind of a chase position, a push position.
Quick windier, so they get to that boundary a little bit earlier. Looks like driving here on Luna Rossa and New Zealand going high and tacking. They're going to push from above. They don't really want to engage too much.
Yeah, a bit of a match race move here, really. Pushing from above is typically easier. You can push boats down the line that much more effectively. But they sure don't seem to be wanting to get back real quick, do they?
Yep. Keep going, Lee.
The longer the boats are slowing here, the better it is for the lead boat.
Both boats high in slow mode. Really interesting. We haven't seen anything like this in quite a while. Let's see if the Kiwis can actually try to push over the bow and try to get to leeward to the left-hand side.
Okay, going speed. Oh, he's going behind.
Going behind. Jimmy Spithill just called it for us.
Got your board, Joshy? Yeah. No. Forward on the pin, Pete.
Okay, bearing away here a little. Inside 30 seconds to start of race number 2 in the match.
Racing, almost racing.
Up, hard.
Francesco Bruni called their racing, which means Team New Zealand might be a little bit late for the start.
Racing line, man.
Back. All the way, go.
Left-hand shift perhaps too here.
Apologies for a slip in the
I think we tack with him.
commentary coming off at board.
1, foot coming down. 2.
And we're a go on race number 2 of the match. Straight away, Emirates Team New Zealand split.
Jimmy Spithill called that. Let's match right away. So he's right smack into match race mode. Very different from what we saw in race number 1 when the Kiwis got ahead. But here's our chance, Shirley. Here's our chance to see what kind of pace the Italians really have.
Just the start that the Italians needed, and I think we can expect a real fight here. We think the Italians are a little bit more maneuverable, they're faster through their tacks, and Jimmy Spithill and Francesco Bruni will use that advantage throughout this race.
That looks like he's setting up potentially. 3, 2, 1. We're coming down. Now it's Hold down. Yours, Benny. Gotcha. Happy to be below. Hey, my rudder.
Straight away, Luna Rossa Prada really tack on them, and they're keeping them on the short side of the boundary. This has all been set up by a bad start from Emirates Team New Zealand. Bad time on distance, handed the start to Luna Rossa, and now it's all about can Team New Zealand find a way around them, or is Luna Rossa going to be able to keep them behind?
Slightly let off the hook, though, here, Nathan. They had a chance to force them to tack right back into that boundary, and they looked like they tacked a little early on Luna Rossa and actually gave the Kiwis a little breathing space here.
What will be interesting is, does this lead slowly eke out? Because, you know, they'll be both selling a higher slow-mo. Look at the boat speeds. They're down at 35 knots. Last race, I'm pretty sure they were much closer to 40 knots. So it's a pinching battle right now. If you're a sailor, you're trying to squeeze that boat on your hip off.
Okay, that's enough. Now we rebuild.
Right now, New Zealand are doing a great job holding a tough spot there.
Very impressive, actually. This is, as all sailors know, being in that position that the Kiwis are in right now is really hard.
There we go. Back to normal again.
Yeah, pressure coming here.
Steady by. 3, 2, 1. Here he goes. Volta. 2, 1. Look down.
Very well done by the Kiwis. They hung in there and they allowed the racetrack to open back up again. They didn't get forced to the short side of the track or the high side of our screen. They allowed the race course to open back up and give themselves options.
And so now's their moment. If they've got the boat speed, this is when they put the foot down and try and go forward and gain a bit of leverage and come back on starboard.
Lee, pretty even racetrack out there right now.
Yeah, the breeze is really cranking in. Struggling to get a view of the boats at the moment, but yeah, the Kiwis did a great job of just gapping off Prada as they tacked. Got a nice little lane to windward and then kind of hung in there and started getting the boat speed going really nicely towards the end of that leg. So really interesting race happening here.
He's tacking now.
2, 1.
Hold down.
We are on leg number 1.
I bet they don't miss him this time, Nathan. They're going to get right on their breeze. Remember, the apparent wind is 10, 12, 14 degrees. It's almost tacking smack in front of your competitor, but you want to be slightly to windward. It kind of looks like they tacked a little early again.
Click early again. They just got, looks like they're going to go about one more width further, but look at the speeds now. Boat speeds are down at 30s. They were 35 before, now they're 30s. This is an intense high mode right now, really trying to punish the boat behind. The longer Team New Zealand stay there, the further in front Luna Rossa are going to get. Yeah, but Team New Zealand happily sitting there by the looks of this.
What a great shot that was. So coming into lay line here.
Coming down.
So race number 2 of this match, the 36th America's Cup, and the roles are reversed. Heading to the top gate for the first time, and it's Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli ahead of Emirates Team New Zealand as they come around the mark.
The Kiwis tacked a little early on this ley line right there, right into the bad air. So actually kind of some unforced errors we've seen for the first time in a long time in this race so far. Boats are tight, placed together, maybe a little bit of nerve, you just never know.
Emirates Team New Zealand come around gate number 1, 13 seconds behind Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. And race number 1, they had a 14-second lead, but game on.
So now the real question is Emirates Team New Zealand a faster boat downwind? You know, they're not going to have any disturbed wind right now. They're basically following around the track. If they're a faster boat, they're going to pull in meters down this downwind.
Just some amazing shots from the water, from all of our camera angles, all over these boats, all the detail, all the statistics. If you're a number guy, Stephen, which you claim you are, that's a dream come true for you.
I'm sitting in heaven right now watching this, but we're also seeing a rather large lead by Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, the challenger.
Surely similar, kind of a similar race to the first one, just a bit of a flip-flop on who's ahead of who. But again, it was that start. It was a mistake off the starting line. Turns into a 250-meter lead in no time.
Tiny. Well, the start wasn't a tiny mistake, but also at the top mark there. The Kiwis just tacking slightly too early. As you said, tacked into that bad air. They also had to sail slow for a little bit, and that's, I mean, that's 100 meters gone right there. It's just all about attention to detail. Incredible sailing.
What are you thinking? Keep it tight? Yeah, I think we'd probably try and split it.
Yep. A little lighter now, but down in 5 again.
That feels good.
Still on the left here. Echo pressure here.
Nice puff here.
Stay same. Little gain for us in the last 30.
Yeah. We got right on it here. Just doing a little build here. It's going a little soft.
Yeah.
Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
There you go, and then that jibe right on the ley line. That red line there is the ley line, and they'll have software on their boat telling them exactly where to jibe as well. So plan coming in here will be a left-hand turn, I suspect, for Luna Rossa, and the real question is Emirates Team New Zealand going to follow them around the same mark?
Then we go straight.
Or are they going to jibe and split the course?
Copy.
The good news here for sailing fans, maybe not if you're specifically an Italian fan or a Kiwi fan, but for sailing fans, is that the rumors of 3 or 4 knot speed differences were greatly exaggerated. These are 2 really pretty similar boats in this wind range so far.
Otherwise, just normal.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli about to complete the second leg of this 6-leg race, race 2 of the match. Looking strong, looking confident as they round the mark and head up on leg number 3. 13 seconds at the top gate.
Coming up, ragazzi.
It's slightly less at the bottom gate. They picked up a second.
Tight move there, Nathan, at the bottom end. That was slick by the Kiwis to split away. That we have seen. That is not an easy maneuver at all.
No, that was very well executed. Got the split at the bottom mark and out of phase. I think I wouldn't surprise me if Luna Rossa, there you go. They've already tacked to get back in phase, and when boats come back together, I'm expecting Luna Rossa are going to tack right in front of them and try and push them up the other boundary this time.
Let's go up to Lee McMillan. Hey, Lee, is that something that the Kiwis did just kind of because of match racing and wanting the split, or you think they saw something on the left-hand side of the track that they liked better?
I think they just wanted to get the split so they could spread, their wings a little bit, get the boat flying, get it ripping, and try not get kind of caught in that high mode like they did in the first speed, and really try and put their upwind performance to the test. So I think that you'll see them just trying to kind of split off, get the boat really ripping and see what it can do on this leg.
No problem, no problem.
Shirley, you think that positioning by the Italians on the first leg was slightly a mistake, or do you think they want to tack just ahead into leeward like that and force the other boat into a high mode?
I think like Lee was saying, they just want to be on their own. I mean, they're confident, they're fast, particularly in that slightly low mode, you know, when they can get the bow down and just get going. And so they just want to be on their own. They want to get ripping. And actually, they've sailed most of this beat, you know, without the cover of the Italians.
I stay here.
So, Kenny, I think this time they're actually a little bit further ahead, so they're able to go a little bit further to win. But I think what happens is when you are within that 100-metre zone, if you just go a little bit too far and tack too far to windward, you risk the boat behind coming in and potentially hooking you. Now they've got a 250-metre lead. They're tacking in the correct spots, and Luna Rossa right now are really controlling this race.
And Stephen, they're pushing. They're now slowly setting the Kiwis up to start pushing them to the left side of the race course. They obviously like the right side, so they're slowly but surely setting the Kiwis up to force them out to the left-hand side of the track and kind of pin them in.
I'm not sure about you, but does this have shades of the Prada Cup final with Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli in total control of the race?
Well, there's no question. I mean, like I just said earlier, these are pretty even boats right now. We're just looking at two even boats out in an even boat race and not making many mistakes. And the boat ahead's doing the right thing, Nathan. If the boat ahead is fast and is doing the right thing, you ain't getting by. If you're behind, not a chance.
Yeah, you're spot on. And one thing that I'm watching this tacking duel right now, and I know that they're a fair way apart, but Luna Rossa to me look like they're making small gains every time they tack. Whenever the boats sail in a straight line, the numbers get a little bit closer, and whenever they tack, they just grow a little bit again. And I feel like maybe there's a small advantage to Luna Rossa in the tacking, because you see this number's actually, it's pretty much, there's nothing in it right now. So every time they maneuver, I think that's when they're making their gains. So they're trying to make New Zealand do lots of tacks.
Let's hear what the conversation's like on board Luna Rossa.
Yeah. Easy pressure here. Trimming.
Good balance.
Discussions between Pietro Sabello, who's sitting actually to leeward right now. Francesco Bruni driving the boat, talking about the balance of the boat. They must be pretty close to a ley line here, coming to the top mark for the second time round. There you go, there's the red line, and pretty clean beat so far from those guys.
Phenomenal.
Gained 50 metres there while Team New Zealand sailed in the dirty air. And Team New Zealand again tacking, which to me looks like in dirty air once again. Not really finding any avenues right now, the boat behind.
We are in a very small left.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli in control of race number 2 of the match. In course E, out on the Hauraki Gulf. And they've stretched their lead on the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand. 13 seconds at gate 1, 12 at gate 2. What will it be at gate number 3? You're about to find out, but again, they sharp maneuver and away they go downwind.
49.8 knots going around that mark.
That's quick.
That's okay. That's not bad.
Stand by.
Emirates Team New Zealand finally making it to the halfway stage of race number 2, and the gap is stretched in favour of Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. It's now out to 25 seconds.
And 51 knots for Emirates Team New Zealand.
I looked away for a second. I knew you were going to call. Can't. You got to one up. You got to one up.
It's an interesting sort of fact that there's not a whole lot of passing happening in these races. You know, if you compare what we've seen in these two races so far, but also Prada Cup final, semi-finals there. Once a boat gets in front, they generally pretty quickly shut the race down upwind make a small gain and then downwind. We haven't seen a pass in a downwind since December when Emirates Team New Zealand passed Ineos. But that's the only race I've seen a boat actually pass another boat downwind.
I see pressure in front.
It's pretty typical of these foiling boats that go so quick. All your setup downwind is to get a split so that you can attack on the upwind. So right now I'm thinking Emirates Team New Zealand, all they can really do is set themselves up to get out of phase again on the upwind and try and attack once again on the last upwind.
Surely not a lot of space to pass right now for the Kiwis, is there?
No, the Italians are doing a good job. You know, this morning, Philip Presti, who's the coach for the Italian outfit, he said in the morning meeting, you know, today is a day for assessment. So not to panic, to go out and learn about our opposition. And they've learned a lot, haven't they? Get a good start.
3, 2, 1.
It's going to be a big match. I mean, great sailing by both these teams. And as Nathan said, not a lot of passing opportunities, not a lot of mistakes by either team.
Stephen, you can hear the relief and the people breathing from all over Italy as we speak. This is a really good sign for the Italians. It's coming down to a sailors race. By the way, this is good for us. This means these boats are pretty darn close, and the sailors are going to make a difference here.
So everybody that suggested that Te Reo Tai was a quicker boat might just be eating their words right now, because look at that lead on leg 4 of 6, stretched out to 430-some meters. And it's Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, the official challenger of record, leading Emirates Team New Zealand, who are one match up. One race up, we could say. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli about to complete the 4th leg.
Here we go.
They'll throw it around the mark and head back upwind for the penultimate leg in race number 2.
And roll it into attack on port tack, coming at the starboard tack boat.
In comes Emirates Team New Zealand. 25 seconds at the top gate, 24 seconds at the 4th gate. So a bit like the last race, almost a deja vu moment. Nothing in this, but roles reversed. One is now the chaser, and one is the hunted.
Kenny, I find it interesting they rolled straight into attack there as opposed to sailing towards this boundary and waiting for Team New Zealand to make a decision on what to do.
We saw the Kiwis do this a little bit in race 1 and kind of questioned it a little bit. I guess maybe this little heart in throat moment for Italian fans. What do they see? What do they see out there, Lee? Do they see just better pressure on the right-hand side? Is it that obvious, or did they make a little mistake here?
I mean, there's nothing obvious wind-wise. I don't know if they were hedging that the Kiwis maybe weren't on lay and were going to split the other way, because they've certainly given them a bit of room now to kind of sail their own leg here for a bit. So I'm not sure if they would have really wanted to have done that.
Sure enough, it looks like this has closed up a bit, Shirley, and maybe that little mistake was made after all.
5, 3, 2, 1, or down.
I think we lost Shirley for a moment out on the water.
But Kenny, I think you're right. Like, they've now done attack, 3 tacks to 1 tack. You know, each tack's going to lose you 50 meters.
Yeah.
So that's why the lead's shrunk again. And
blink of an eye, 430 meters coming downward upwind. Suddenly we're at 170 meters.
And by the way, we're talking about one boat may or may not be faster than the other. I think the big difference is that one boat may not be fast enough to overcome a big mistake, right? We still don't know who the quicker boat is here yet, right? Especially in this condition and other conditions. But sure appears that if you get ahead and just make the right moves, the other boat doesn't have that dominant performance ability just to sail around you.
3, 2, 1, hold down.
So this is the penultimate leg of race number 2 on the opening day of the match for the 36th America's Cup. Race 1 won by Emirates Team New Zealand, who are now trailing Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli in the second showdown. And they are trying to hunt them down. They really are the hunter right here.
So in here. Stand by, boys.
Probably as close to attacking duel as we're going to get here for a while, Nathan. And I'm guessing they go back, like we were talking about, they go back around that leeward mark and said, maybe we got a little cute. Maybe that tack right around the leeward mark got a little cute. We could have spread the race course out a bit and been a little more controlling.
I think you're spot on. I think initially, you know, they're probably thinking they're not laying, so we'll be smart and we'll do the tack around the mark because they're going to have to jibe and go to the other mark and we'll be on their face. Turns out that they got a little bit too smart and gave up a bit of leverage and did a few extra manoeuvres, but they're still in front, 200 metres in front. I don't think anyone's panicking right now. They're definitely not giving them a chance, that's for sure. Once they get in phase, they keep them in phase there.
This must be an incredibly frustrating position to be in for Emirates Team New Zealand. You're seeing yourself close up, and the boat in front is just playing the game. And you can't do anything about it because of similar speeds at this point.
Well, yep, definitely. The boats are pretty evenly matched, and right now we've seen 2 mistakes today. One from Jimmy Spittle and Luna Rossa in the first start, and one from Peter Burling in the second start. And this is what the end result is. You know, it's a game of mistakes, and if you don't make mistakes, you win, and if you make mistakes, you're going to lose.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, the gap is closed. Emirates Team New Zealand are trying to hunt them down with 1 leg to go. But they haven't been headed in this race so far. The official challenger record. These are the 2 teams that designed these magnificent AC-75 falling monohulls. And the gap will have closed. And Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli head on the final leg downward, leg number 6 in race 2 of the match.
5 away, 3.
It was 24 seconds at the last mark. They've split in half, 50% gain on another leg, 12 seconds, and it's the race to home.
They're going to have to do something special, Shirley, aren't they? They're not going to just drag race this one down.
No, and I think, you know, the Italians lost half their lead by just sailing their own race and cruising on to the favoured side, so they're not going to let them go again, that's for sure.
Yeah, he drives now, it's fine into it.
Lee, kind of final call from you're the tactician on the Kiwi boat right now. Is there any magic wand, any magic bullet out there that gets you by?
They're in a good bit of pressure right now, so they did the right thing there, jibing. There's a little bit of a funnel almost down the middle of the course looking at it. But I mean, Prada, I think, have really got to slip up here for it to go back to Emirates Team New Zealand's way. Other than that one tack at the bottom, they did a really good job of just down beats, and like Nathan said, the downwinds are more about setting up the next beat. You've got to try and find your opportunities in those upwinds. So Prada did a fantastic job of really shutting that down, other than that one leeward mark, really.
I'll be low.
Stand by, boys. 3, 2, 1, more down. Turn.
My runner.
What's interesting to me, Nathan, as they're coming in towards the finish line, 1,500 meters to go in the race, pretty small lead. It's not a big lead, but how slowly they're now pulling these boards out of the water. They used to be really aggressive with pulling the old board out of the water. Now they're doing it slower and slower.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I guess the slower those boards come up, the smoother it is. But let's just follow this into the race. We can analyse the manoeuvres a little bit later. I feel like it's getting a bit closer and a bit tighter. And if you're an Italian fan right now, you might be starting to want to hold your breath a little bit, because you can feel Team New Zealand breathing down their neck a little bit more.
Under 1,000 metres to go to the finish. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli coming under pressure from the defender. But they've led all the way from the start.
2, 1.
One would suspect in this second race
My rake, my drop.
Yes.
that maybe they'll run out of race course, Emirates Team New Zealand. Look at that.
They didn't make it easy.
100 metres.
They didn't make it easy, though.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, beaten by 31 seconds in race number 1 of the match. This time you can hear the quiet satisfaction. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli take out race 2 of the match, and we are all tied up at 1-1. 7 seconds the gap. Now that's a race.
Nathan, I think it's relief on board this boat as much as anything right now. That was as much cheering as we've seen when anybody has won a race on board the Luna Rossa boat. I think they're just relieved that maybe the rumors weren't true, that they do have a boat that can actually win races in this event.
Yeah, relief is a great word. They won all. Like, that's a fantastic outcome for the challenger. You know, normally the defender, you think, has a little bit of an advantage. If you can go 1-all on day 1, and as Philippe Presti was saying, it's a day to see where you stack up against your competition. Well, not much in it. It's all about how well you start, how well you sail, and it seems like if you can start well, you control the race, and that'd be a huge confidence booster for Luna Rossa and all Italian fans right now. They'd be very happy with today.
So if you were Emirates Team New Zealand and you the furthest behind was 25 seconds, but you came home strong and you miss out by 7 seconds, you must gain something from that. There must be learnings from that.
Oh, of course, they're learning from every minute they spend on the race course against another boat. But you also learn that our boat is not going to be fast enough to sail around a mistake. And that's what they made at the beginning of the race. They made a mistake, one mistake that ended up costing them, and that other boat ain't slow.
Confirmation now of the result in race number 2 of the 36th America's Cup match. And Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli square the ledger up. They win by 7 seconds ahead of the defender Emirates Team New Zealand.
Well, the key moment of this race, right back to the start. Seems like we're always at the start in the key moments of this race. Remember, the Kiwis did a kind of an interesting move. They did attack and put themselves in a position on what Nathan, I think, correctly called the left-hand wind shift. Put themselves in a position that they became vulnerable. They couldn't get to the line on time on distance for the Italians, and off they went. Leg 1, they actually also tacked in some interesting positions here. This is the Italians now on the other foot. They didn't quite tack smack on the breeze on that wind to create that wind shadow of the Kiwis. We thought they left the Kiwis off the hook a little bit more, but maybe this was a strategy. We'll have to ask some of the skippers in between races. Decent lead coming into the mark. It's really, Nathan, this was one mistake at the start, and even the Kiwis, they tacked in a little bad air right there. It wasn't a perfect race on either side, was it?
No, it wasn't at all. I was a bit shocked with the start, to be honest, and then Pete kept tacking early on these ley lines and coming off the foils once there before, and this is where they started to really try and open up the race by this really nice jibe around the bottom mark, splitting the course, and straight away Luna Rossa in the background here, they roll into attack and they start to shut the race down from there. It was a close race the whole way through it, and on leg 4 they're quite a long way behind here on this downwind, you know, over 400 meters behind, really looking for options. It was this maneuver here around the bottom mark when Luna Rossa, at the top mark, but the key moment here was when Luna Rossa did those extra tacks down at the bottom. That was when they let the Kiwis back into the race and gave them half a sniff, and that's what got him right back into 10 seconds.
Made it exciting, there's no question about that. Made it a little closer, I think, than Italian fans wanted it to be, but nonetheless, a win's a win. And we go into day number 2, which will be on Friday here in New Zealand, with a score of 1 apiece.
So just a quick update on the scoreboard. Here we go. After day 1 of racing and 2 races, we are all level. 1 apiece. Remember, in this America's Cup, first to 7 wins will win the America's Cup. Let's go on board Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. This time we'll talk to Jimmy Spittle because he likes talking to us when he gets a win under the belt. And Jimmy, what a difference 30 minutes can make between races, hey?
Yeah, I thought the boys sailed a great race then. We had obviously quite a lot of manoeuvres, quite a lot of tacks, and yeah, just kept the boat going well. So it was a good sign of strength, I thought, to bounce back after that first one.
Hey, Jimmy, going into that final leeward gate. Now, we're going to have to think back here for a second. That final leeward gate, you guys went through the gate and rolled into attack immediately. Kind of created a split. Was that a wind shift thing, or were you trying to anticipate what the other guys were doing? Take us through that whole maneuver if you could.
Yeah, I mean, we came into that mark in a left phase, and we liked the pressure right. So we were happy to sort of take advantage of the shift. Obviously, if you don't do it and you hold, then you allow him to basically do the JK, and he gets that, you know, the use of the phase. So yeah, we just followed our plan. We kept it calm, and you know, the boat did the rest of the work.
Hey Jimmy, it's Nathan here. Nice job on the start. I'm sure you feel much better after a good start in a race win. I guess what the whole sailing world right now is thinking is that, you know, rumours had you guys to be slower in this wind strength. Are you guys surprised that, you know, it's so close in boat speed, or is this something you knew in the background the whole time?
No, I mean, look, it was one of those racetracks where I thought the lead boat had an advantage. You know, on the first one, they were able to get ahead after, you know, we didn't get the penalty. That one, we're able to, you know, start ahead and again, just sort of pick and choose when we had the tack and jibe and sort of force him to one side. But yeah, it's great to be competitive. Great to get a race win, and we're looking forward to tomorrow.
All right, thanks. Well, tomorrow you get a day off, so that's the good thing. We'll see you back on the water on Friday, okay?
Yeah, can't wait, mate. Bring it on.
All right, let's go on board Emirates Team New Zealand, have a quick chat to Peter Burling. I said just a moment ago, it's amazing what can happen inside 30 minutes, Peter. So, okay, where do you think you might have got this one wrong?
Yeah, well, we definitely didn't get the best start. You know, we kind of quite liked the right looking up the beat, so we were kind of quite keen on that windward position, but then just didn't do quite a good enough job of the roundups. Ended up skidding sideways and falling into them, which was a bit of a shame. But yeah, we definitely looked a little bit rusty there in that one, but you know, it's good to get back into them on that last speed and, you know, really show that, you know, we are good downwind. You know, it felt like had there been another lap, we might have had a good chance.
So that's my question, Pete. Talk about race rust. Do you feel it? I mean, is this something that is real? It's been talked about a lot. So just give us a clue as to race ready, race hardness, I guess, that the Italians have been going through and that you guys haven't raced in a while.
Yeah, well, definitely. It's something that we, no secrets, haven't raced in a little while. So no, it's great to, you know, get that first win under our belt. And we felt like we did a really good job in that pre-start. We kind of wanted to ride again. Yeah, and that second pre-start, obviously, just one mistake, and your life's pretty hard for the rest of the race. So we've got plenty to go home and debrief. And I think one thing that, you know, the America's Cup always shows is the person who wins the last race that's going to win it. So, you know, we're pretty happy to get one on the board and move on into the weekend.
Hey, Pete, it's Nathan here. Last time you guys raced Luna Rossa back in December, to me and probably to everyone, it looked like you had a significant speed edge, particularly in the above 12-knot wind range. Are you guys as surprised as we are of how fast Luna Rossa is? And, you know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, this is probably where we think you know, from looking at the other teams and the way they've changed their boat, where they should be pretty strong at the moment. That's something we were definitely felt like the boats were pretty even today. You know, felt like you just had to do the right things and sail the shifts, and actually, you know, we made a few mistakes in tacks and stuff, which is, yeah, you could say is rust or just a mistake. I'm pretty happy that, you know, we've got a tool here that we can win this thing with.
Nice work, Pete. You've won all. Another day off. I know you're going to be busy tomorrow. We'll see you back on Friday, bud.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
So we are at 1-1 in the match in the 36th America's Cup. Let's just take a look at the numbers. And as you know, again, when you look at downwind speed, when we thought, well, there was the suggestion, should I say, that Emirates Team New Zealand were quicker, there's not much in this.
Yeah, not much in it at all. In fact, the distance sailed again was actually shorter for the Kiwis, for the boat behind, I should say. That's kind of a rarity. Usually you see the distance sailed to the boat that's winning, the advantage of sailing less distance. Nathan, nothing super sticks out at that stage. A couple more tacks maybe by the Italians. Kind of
a couple more tacks could be the extra distance, because you've got to sail a bit lower out of the tacks to build speed, but not much in it.
Alrighty, let's take a look at our analysis. Just look at that first leg again, and again, speeds. This is all about speed. We're flying quick boats.
So if we zoom in to some of these tacks and jibes, the red boat in general, if we go on to the next leg, quite possibly, I think it showed well, maybe we'll go one more. I might be having, there we go. This is so it shows the red boat is significantly slower in each of these tacks.
The bottom speed slower. That red is dipping at 25 instead of about 28. Yeah.
During a maneuver.
And then it sits sort of flat for a little bit, as you can see, and then it accelerates. Whereas Luna Rossa just seemed to go through the tack and just a nice gradual speed. And I think that's where some of the gains are coming from.
And if I was to repeat what Kenny said, when we take a look at the key moment, starts. Starts are critical.
That's all we keep talking about through all these last series. This is all, and this is a split high. This is called a high split done by the Kiwis. They're thinking the other boat's early, and we want to push, and we want to push from a leveraged position, reaching and going fast. But this is really interesting to me, Nathan. They didn't put the hammer down right now. They didn't start pushing back early. They stayed high. Both boats stayed high and slow for a significant amount of time. That kind of changed the game for the Kiwis.
It did. Like, I was expecting them to tack and push from above, and I was expecting them to bear away straight away and get the race course, get the boats back towards that start line. The longer they stay slower here, the better it looks for Prada. And
no question.
By the time they bear away, they're like, well, we can't roll now because we're going to be early. So they drop the dagger board here and they soak down. And Jimmy just laughs and goes, I'm on time. You guys are late.
No question.
And they just hand the start over there.
Yeah. Not pushing right away was really the key moment. Once they tacked on the starboard, right back near that box, you really got to put the hammer down and start pushing that other boat towards the starting line. Here, you're just vulnerable. It's over, and it looked like you called. It looked like a left-hand shift to boot. It's start over for the Kiwis at this stage.
Yeah, 30 seconds to go. They were toast, and it all stemmed back from what they did at a minute to go. They didn't tack and push early enough, and they kind of handed the start to Jimmy.
Tactical mistake by Emirates Team New Zealand in race 2 cost them. And just take a quick look again on our 3D.
Top of the screen, that staying. They should, in our mind, Nathan and I both agree, they should have done that push as soon as they tacked onto starboard.
Beautiful scene it does make, and that is the spectator fleet heading back in to think about what happened on race day number 1. It is 1-1 in the match in 2021. The AC-75s have revolutionized the America's Cup. Yes, we know it's a high-speed, high-stakes game. The difference between a win and a loss can be seconds. In the interest of accuracy, though, the umpire team rely heavily on technology. There's a water team and another on dry land. And between them, they can make calls with millimetre perfection.
both pushed their protest button. Both thinks the other one fouled.
This is the umpire's GBR boundary penalty.
Stop it! Stop it! Protest.
We have 5 umpires, 3 of us here in the booth and 2 in the water who watch what's happening out there. It's important to have the umpires both on the water and in the booth, mainly because the speed of the boats.
53.3 knots. I can't get rid of that number.
We can't follow these boats at these speeds just on the water. We do need to be able to track them more accurately, and we do so by collecting the data and seeing it here on the umpot.
Italy board down. Foiling tack looking good.
As an umpire on the water, we always try to make sure we are at the right spot for the decision to be made on the water. We have 2 umpire boats on the water. Each of us adopts 1 boat, so you can find us chasing the boats behind. And of course, we are in the constant contact with the booth. So basically what we are doing is we are giving the information to the booth umpires what the boats are doing on the water, things that they cannot see on the software.
Looks like they are laying right mark.
Once we are chasing them, we are basically looking what kind of maneuvers they are doing. Things like whether the boats are clear, whether they are overlapped, if they are in the zone of the marks. This is everything that the booth umpires can see on their software. However, they are not able to see what kind of maneuvers and boat handling is performed by the sailing yachts, and this is what we are looking at.
Empire 1 bailing out to avoid GBR will follow Italy downwind.
So everything that is related with boat handling, what kind of maneuvers the boat are doing, whether they are foiling or they are not foiling, this is all this kind of input that is very crucial sometimes to make the decision. So we are trying to exchange the information to make sure that the call is the right one.
In the booth, we're picking up the data of the boats and having it on our UmpBot, which is the program where we track and monitor what's happening and can replay any incident that occurs.
Penalty GBR, both boats OCS, which is neutralised, penalty GBR.
It's important to have us in the booth and on the water so that our calls can be consistent. We can interpret the rules correctly and consistently. We deal with 2 centimetre accuracy and we deal with, I think it's about 1/100th of a degree of the boat angle. So that means when we see where the boat is, it's there. We're not trying to make a best guess with our eyes.
Okay, 22s, 23s.
The Waitemata Harbour, and in the distance you can see Auckland City, the needle of the sky towers. This magnificent spectator fleet heads back home, having a good think about what they saw today. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli triumphing in race number 2 after being beaten in race number 1, which means we are all locked up and we're back racing in a couple of days on Friday. Day off for both teams. Tomorrow's, wow, they just flying even on the toe, don't they? Kenny Reid, what did you make of day 1?
Yeah, if you're an Italian fan, you're thrilled. If you're a Kiwi fan, you're shaking the rust, and not to be, probably to be expected, having a little bit of rust, and both boats are saying, hey, we can win this thing, or let's have at it. We'll see you on Friday.
And the one thing we saw today, Nathan, not much in this at all. This is a tight match.
There is a lot less in this than what the word on the street has been. The word on the street has been that this boat here, Emirates Team New Zealand, should be the faster boat when it's windier. Smaller foils, the way that they performed in December, I think everyone's in a bit of shock right now. And I expect you, every Kiwi fan on those boats going home right now are like, wow, we might actually lose this thing. It's
wow, you went there. Yeah, you went deep early.
I bet you all of those spectators were expecting 2 wins today, and I think what we're in for now is a fantastic America's Cup.
I'd like to that was Nathan Outeridge saying that, right? I was just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is the same guy in our preview show picked a, dare I say it, fact. He picked an Emirates Team New Zealand win in this Cup by 7-2. It's done. We're back tomorrow, but let's just remind you where we stack up. And this is where we stack up the standings first of all. Remember, it's the best of 13 race series. It's the first team to 7 race wins that will win the 36th edition of the America's Cup. We are at 1-1, and it's only day number 1. How far does it go? That's the intrigue. So we are racing next on Friday. That's 2 days away. And local time, it'll be Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli with port entry at 4:15 local. And then for race number 4, it'll be Emirates Team New Zealand on port entry at 5:15 local time. We are done on an exciting day number 1 of the 36th edition of the America's Cup. The fleet is heading home. Peter Burling and crew will have plenty to think about. They'll think we cannot make mistakes, but the same will apply to Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. They made a mistake at the start as well. How much will we be talking in the next 24 hours about the start? Race 1 is done, race 2 is done. We'll see if race 3 in 48 hours or thereabouts.
Today's America's Cup Racing is brought to you from Auckland, New Zealand.